Good evening, you're watching Left, Right and Centre. I'm Nidhi Razdan. A very happy Independence Day to all our viewers. Tonight on the programme, we'll be looking at the Prime Minister's last speech from the Red Fort ahead of the 2019 general elections. It focused a lot on his government's achievements and schemes over the last 4.5 years and the rollout of the massive Modicare health plan, the largest government-funded health plan anywhere in the world. Will Modicare and other social welfare schemes then become the game changers for the next election? Or will the Modi government be judged on delivery and not just promises and slogans? Well, one of those big announcements, as we said today, was the rollout of this big government-funded healthcare program. It's called Ayushman Bharat, or Modicare popularly, and that would benefit about 50 crore people. Focusing on his achievements in his fifth and final address from the Red Fort before next year's elections, the PM said, "We can take tough decisions because the nation's interest is first to us and not the parties." On the Ayushman Bharat, what we know is that it will officially be rolled out on the 25th of September. That's on the birth anniversary of Deen Dayal Upadhyay, the co-founder of the Bharatiya Janata Sangh. The program aims to provide coverage of 5 lakh rupees to 10 crore economically backward families and will cost anywhere between 6 to 8,000 crores over the next 6 months or so. The big question is, as we look at the Prime Minister's speech, was this essentially setting the stage for 2019? Was this an election speech that looked back at his government's achievements? And what will the Prime Minister ultimately be judged on? Here on the program with us today is Nalin Kohli, spokesperson of the BJP. Sachin Pilot, president of the Rajasthan Congress, joins us this evening. Pinaki Mishra, a member of parliament from the Biju Janata Dal. Yogendra Yadav, the national president of Swaraj India, and senior journalist Sabha Naqvi joining us as well. I'll take this question first to Nalin Kohli. Nalin, would you say that this was an election speech? Of course, he was speaking as the Prime Minister of India from the ramparts of the Red Fort, but he was also laying out a blueprint of what he thinks is the government's report card and possibly also what he plans to do if he is elected again.
It can't be an election speech, A, for the occasion, B, for the fact that it's on the ramparts, and C, he's not actually spoken against political parties in the sense of, how an election speech is for a candidate or something. This is actually stock taking in the truest way. I being the Prime Minister, people have entrusted that responsibility on me. This is what we've done. Bridge the gap, increase the pace and taken it to the aspiration level. So this is aspiration in terms of what's the vision ahead, and this is showcasing the pace at which what we've done. Whether it's LPG, whether it is linking up, whether it's Mangalyaan, whether it is Gaganyaan, Mangalyaan done, Gaganyaan to happen, whether it's about Swachh Bharat, whether it's about Ayushman Bharat.
And but that's a different way of doing the same thing, which is trying to lay out a vision for what you
But
may
why
do next.
shouldn't it be?
No,
and it's never been so.
Therefore,
he's
it is
done
that.
I don't think, in a sense, 15th August, if for as many years and decades that I've seen 15th August, it's always been about a conversation of what we've done and also about what we plan to do. Traditionally, a lot has been said on 15th August at the ramparts that this is what we plan to do. So I think putting ahead, a path ahead, now in the last year of the tenure, putting a path ahead
only as a government. He also made a lot of comparisons with the previous government.
I think he spoke about the important thing
that his
space.
Government, not just space, but that we are taking tough decisions. If we had gone by what was happening in 2013, then some things would have taken 100 years to complete, etc.
So well, actually, two of them, up to 2 example go much beyond 100 years.
No, so there was, a very clear political undertone, even though it was an Independence Day speech.
But let's be clear, Nidhi, and I don't think we should be apologetic or pretend.
No, that's why I'm
the fact of the matter remains is that the Prime Minister's position is a political position. It's not a constitutional authority like the President of India or a governor of a state. The Prime Minister is the highest political entity of the land. And obviously, whatever the Prime Minister says will always be viewed by everyone and should be also from a political perspective. But when he works as the Prime Minister, he works, and he has said it again, I'm the Prime Minister of 125 crore Indians. Not of those only who voted for me, but those who also have not voted for me.
Okay,
so putting the stock of what I've done, even a comparative, I don't see it as negative in any way. Some of the criticism coming, which I've seen of political parties.
I'll come to that.
I find that even funny in the sense. What is the criticism? We should be celebrating if India is developing at a faster rate.
So, Sachin Pilot, can I ask you that do you believe, honestly, that as we head into the general elections, when you have possibly a game-changing landmark scheme like this healthcare scheme, there have been, of course, many question marks. Not all states are on board yet. There are issues about cost, etc. But when something like that becomes the sort of flagship focus of the government ahead of the elections, Would you say that these are the kind of schemes that have the potential to become game changers, whether it's this or the Ujjwala Yojana, etc., that the government will now hard sell and could to its advantage?
Well, there's nothing wrong in government announcing a scheme like one we heard today. The only issue is of timing, because we hear about elections now around the corner. To be able to launch, execute and implement a program like this within the time frame that we have left for the next elections seems improbable. So it's probably more for effect rather than for delivery as far as this scheme is concerned. And if really this scheme was so keenly wanting by the BJP or the government, why wait 4 years? This could have been done some time ago. But I'm not criticizing the scheme per se. All I'm saying is what happened to the other schemes? I mean, the Make in India, Digital India, Stand Up India, Swachh India. Is the Ganges more clean than it was before? Is Make India a success? He didn't mention a word about the agrarian crisis, the huge unemployment, a lot of things that people are battling with on a daily basis. So it's okay to stand and talk to the nation, but I think it's also important to touch upon the pertinent issues of the day. So whether anybody accepts it or not, but it seems a lot like a speech for someone who is wanting to go to elections the next few months.
All right. So you believe there were just too many things he did not touch upon. Pinaki Mishra, your first thoughts on the speech and on the scheme as well. I believe Orissa is one of the states which is skeptical, about a scheme such as what is being called Modicare. But just on the firstly, the overall impressions that you walked away with from today's speech.
Well, obviously, it was geared towards, as Nalin Kohli says, some form of stock taking of the last 4.5 years. I don't know how much of the stock taking was actually borne out by actual facts and how much of it was more of a wish list which the Prime Minister was giving vent to. For instance, I'll just tell you straight away, right after the speech, I think Dr. Sivan, who's the chairman of ISRO, was on your channel, I think, and he looked highly skeptical about any attempt at this 2022 or before that, any attempt to go into space or to put somebody on the moon. He looked very, very skeptical, but I mean, he of course welcomed it, but he said that, what can we say about this? Once the Prime Minister has made a commitment, we will try our best. But be that as it may, let me straight away come to this health scheme. Today, on Independence Day, Shri Naveen Patnaik has already announced the Biju Swasthya Kalyan Yojana in terms of Orissa. We had written to the central government that we do not propose to be part of the Ayushman Bharat because we have no faith that it will get kick-started within this financial year with the very limited budget outlay. So now with this, the Chief Minister has announced 5 lakhs for each beneficiary. Also has announced it to 7 lakhs exclusively for women, responding instantly to an appeal made by a tribal woman of Malkangiri during a video conferencing with her. This will benefit more than 3.5 crore people of the state, covering more than 70 lakh families.
So you're skeptical.
And
you're skeptical about how all these big promises
Biju
will play out.
Swasthya Kalyan is one last thing. Here the beneficiaries will get direct financial assistance from the state government and not via any insurance company. So there is no question of involving any insurance company and all the other larger ramifications that we have with regard to that, for which many people have, I think, exhibited a great deal of skepticism as far as this entire insurance company modality is concerned. So this is directly a state government scheme. It will cover all BPL families, so 70 lakh families. So therefore we are going ahead, regardless of.
So you clearly have a degree of skepticism about how these sort of big schemes are going to be rolled out on the ground. And before we go to Yogendra Yadav, Sabha, a quick summary from you.
Absolutely.
How did you look at Modi's speech? Was this Narendra Modi preparing for 2019? Some have even said today that they believed he was actually more restrained in his tone, his tenor. I think Nalin also pointed out he didn't directly name the Congress, etc. But that maybe he was trying for a more statesman-like approach on the eve of elections.
There were a couple of things that stood out for me. It was not a rabble-rousing speech. It was not one of those moments. He's going to have a lot of them in the run-up to 2019. It was stock-taking, and it was promising things like we are going to have a man in space. It was a very structured prime ministerial, presidential kind of a speech. But my takeaways from it were two things. Nidhi, just bear with me. There were the two things he did not mention. One, he did not mention, in the stock taking, he never mentioned demonetization, which was one of the biggest significant policy decisions, economic, taken by him. Number two, we have seen certain email interviews where the Prime Minister is quoted as speaking strongly about hate crimes. His words, he did not say so in person with what we saw on email interviews. Number two, these were the two things that struck me, and there were two messages also which I found interesting. He said that he was happy to announce the withdrawal of AFSPA in two northeastern states. So clutching at straws, we can therefore presume that the Prime Minister of India believes that getting rid of AFSPA is a goal we should all be striving for. Number one. Then he also, at a time when Kashmir is in hell, he's also mentioned the Insaniyat Jamhuriyat speech of Atal Bihari Vajpayee, which I welcome.
Which he's mentioned before.
Which he's welcomed before. And thirdly, something which I don't understand the logistics of, which I welcome, is this issue of women getting into the forces. And
but let me ask Nalin. So Nalin, let's talk about the issues that Sachin Pilot and Sabha both flagged, the missing issues. That he didn't touch upon things that are currently facing the country. For instance, he didn't talk about demonetization as a big achievement, the lynchings, the issues also of, for instance, jobs, what young people want. There is that issue as well. How would you look at that sidestepping?
Sachin missed the speech perhaps, or didn't pay attention. He did speak about farmers and farmers' income quite a bit, and he spoke about all the segments that they are targeting about. If I look at it in terms of it, this wasn't in any case a speech in which would you expect the Prime Minister to speak on everything over 4 years. If that is meant to be the nature of it, I would probably say that might be a bit.
But demonetization
was
a big thing.
He's spoken, in the figurative speech, yes, in the figurative speech 1,000,000 times. He's spoken about demonetization so many times. We've sat on debates.
Just one line, Nalin. Nalin, as a citizen of the country, I think I would be reassured, and many people would be reassured, if our Prime Minister spoke a little more forcefully against hate crimes, did not give an email interview about it.
But Sabha, he has
we
also
look
put
for
his
those
position.
words of reassurance.
That's why I'm saying the reassurance that the reassurance of this was primarily, and the crux of the speech was in terms of delivery and in terms of development. Absolutely clearly, this wasn't. And if you're talking about hate crime, yes, Nidhi herself has just said he's spoken about it. It's been published as headlines.
It's different when he says it from the Red
But why
Fort.
do you believe that he would not be
How
speaking
you nuance
about
the
it?
word,
And
how
secondly,
strongly
I think for everyone, let me come for a moment. Let me say, in everything that the Honourable Prime Minister speaks, there is something for someone dear to them or something that someone hopes that this should have been the focus. Each one of us is different. What matters now from a farmer's perspective, everything around that, or the health perspective. So I think if you look at it in terms of delivery, this was a speech for the entirety of India. And therefore, he has clearly said it. Now, everyone is entitled to, and that's what the Constitution gives us our right, to find a point of view to say like this. But I think the Prime Minister has never shied away from speaking on anything. And it's come at different points. I remember specifically when there were these so-called attacks on churches. At that time, it was said that, they are orchestrated by the BJP. When he got the occasion,
the
he spoke.
lynchings are very real. And
but and each one of us has spoken about it. The Prime Minister himself has.
I want to ask you, Sachin, that do you believe that then, when we head into 2019, that the way people will vote will be on the delivery, or will be based on how this government has delivered in the last 4 years? Or will some of these schemes that he's talking about, these goals that he's talking about, do they have the potential to really catch the attention of people? I mean, this healthcare thing, for instance, could actually be a game changer if it works.
You see, it's a game changer if it works, and that's the trick about it. I think people will vote and see if their lives have gotten better in the last 4.5 years. You can have 100 schemes, you can launch X number of programs, spend thousands of crores, but does the average citizen in this country feel more empowered, more liberated, more gainfully employed, more secure, more financially better off, better educated? I mean, the whole ecosystem and the whole environment is not what it was 4 years ago. You talked about mob lynching. I mean, this word was not invented 4 years ago, but today it's become a part of daily discourse. So there's a new bar being set, and those powers that have the antisocial elements with them, they are being encouraged from somewhere. I think the Prime Minister could have spoken about, like Nalin Kohli was saying, about not everything under the sun, but certainly the things that matter to society. Of course, you talk about your schemes, you pat yourself on the back, that's expected. But you also want to talk about the issues that bother the thinking individual in this country. The message was to the entire nation, and he shouldn't have been speaking as a BJP leader. He's the Prime Minister of India. He's sworn to protect the constitution, but they are being challenged. The institutions of our constitution and other bodies are being challenged on a daily basis to have reassured the citizens. And somebody else pointed out, the big items that the BJP government has done last 4 years is Notbandi and GST. I don't think they found that much of a mention. And I also believe that every minister, chief minister, prime minister is ultimately a politician. So I give them that margin to have said things that benefits them politically. But you draw a line somewhere where you don't talk politics per se, you talk about nation building. So rhetoric and speech is fine. People will vote, Nidhi, like you asked me, not on the personality of individuals, not on the jumlas and schemes, but on the actual delivery. Do people feel safe? Do women in our country feel secure today? We keep talking about economic growth. Have jobs been delivered? Will farmers stop committing suicide?
But you had an interesting sentence there where you said that he shouldn't have spoken like the Prime Minister of the BJP. There'll be different opinions on that. Yogendra Yadav is joining us. Mr. Yadav, did you also think that he was speaking more like a BJP leader and less like the Prime Minister of India?
I didn't say that.
Okay, what did you say then? It was something like that.
I said he is the Prime Minister of India.
Or so not of the BJP.
Simply a leader in the BJP. He's also the Prime Minister.
Actually, yes. He's first the Prime Minister of India and then he's the leader of the BJP. Yogendra Yadav, your thoughts?
That's true.
Nidhi, on this one point, I entirely agree with Nalin Kohli. Look, this is a 15th of August Prime Minister's address is meant to be a political speech, which is what he delivered. He is entitled to, in fact, he is required to present a 5-year report card of his government, which is what he did. I did not see that as an election speech because going by Mr. Modi's standards, some of these election speeches can be truly very low. He did not do it, thankfully, and he protected the dignity of Red Fort. I'm only grateful to him. I'm also very relieved that there was no attempt at stoking a communal issue, which he can sometimes in subtle ways. Today, there was very little of it. That's very good. Some of the symbolism was very positive. Subramanyam Bharati, reference to Northeast, and permanent commission to women in the army, hopefully in combat positions. All these are very positive things. In terms of stylistics, I thought it was a little jaded by his own standards. He is a good orator, can deliver a better speech than Mr. Manmohan Singh even in his sleep. But I thought he was
that I think nobody will argue
repetitive.
With you.
Most of the dialogues were stolen from previous years, and looked he was like a magician who's on the stage and who knows that the charm is broken, the spell is broken right now. So there was that element. I thought there was a nervous energy in what he was saying. But on more substance, my real disappointment is with the substance of it. Picking the health scheme, for example. Nidhi, the important thing is not that he announced a great health scheme today. What we have learned is that the scheme which was announced a few months ago, which was meant to be launched today, could not be launched today. The launch has been postponed. That's the headline. The second headline is that some states, including Maharashtra, which is a BJP state, is not participating in it. And the third headline is that private sector has refused and so far not taken any interest in it simply because the amount being invested is so small.
Yeah, there are serious hurdles on it about it, which is what we're reporting is as well. I'll ask Nalin about that in just a second.
20,000 crores. No, so that is the new thing that we have learned today.